So I'd like to give you a reality check. According to the World Food Program, we produce enough food to feed everyone. So why don't we? Accessibility and waste are two keys. In the US alone, we waste 20 pounds of food per person per month. I lead the Edmonds Food Bank, and I advocate for food security for people locally and nationally. And I know literally tens of thousands of people facing food insecurity, including myself. Many years ago, when we made the decision to move across country to raise our children around family, I had a job loss, and we had an economic downturn. We were incredibly lucky. We kept our home. We made it look like everything was okay. But the reality was, we were making sure our children were well fed while we were skipping meals ourselves. Because the truth about food insecurity is that it's not just what goes here. It is also whether that is nutritious, healthy food that supports your mind and body. Because without that, things can go wrong quickly. And sometimes for the most absurd reasons. Someone I know received a 25-cent an hour raise. They were thrilled. They were being respected for the work they were doing, and they just were so excited. Until a few weeks later, when they were crying in my office because they had received information that said that they no longer could receive SNAP, a federal food program, because their income was too high. The fact is that food insecurity permeates our lives because it is a part of our community. It is that individual who might be standing on a corner, but it is also a friend or a neighbor or someone in your family who is making those choices. They have to choose between a medical bill or whether or not their children have something they need or access to food. And that's the reality for over 18 million people in the United States. But something scarier than that is that there are many more who are just one major event away from food insecurity. And how do they handle that? How do they face that medical bill or that job loss or retirement or a minor level funding raise? So we're going to take a little bit of a look at history and how food insecurity has impacted us throughout society over the years. I'm going to talk about an interesting combination of things. I am going to talk about the French Revolution, the rise of the Black Panther Party, and COVID-19. In 1789, due to a very bad winter and the refusal of nobility to pay taxes, food prices rose while there also wasn't enough to go around. And that led to over 300 riots in less than 3 weeks because unmet needs incite unrest. And food is a basic need. So then, if food is a basic need, have you ever thought about the breakfast that you receive, that kids receive for free in their schools? Have you ever wondered where that came from and where that started? Well, one place it started was free breakfast from the Black Panther Party. Because you see, they believed part of their revolutionary mission was to ensure that children were fed, because they knew that taking care of feeding the community, and especially the children, led to a resilient community. Exactly what I'm talking about here. So we can recognize from these stories that we can either use food as a tool for empowerment or a way to control that can lead to revolution. So now we talk a little bit about COVID, which happened more recently, and many of you may have experienced it. And you're going to be described by one of these two things. You could buy food in advance, or you worked from home and you could order online, and you had the ability to have the credit to have all that delivered to you. But tell me about the person who didn't have that. The person who lost their job and didn't have access to credit to do those, and highly likely were taking jobs that was risking their health to feed those who did have it by delivering to them, right? In that place, the volunteers and the staff of food banks all over the country, but this is Edmonds Food Bank, stepped up and made sure people were fed so that they could be resilient, so that they could come back from this. And as first responders, we understood that if we fed them, we were helping create a resilient community. So the reality is, let's think about what we may have learned or not learned by that little piece of history. Because I will tell you, after 6 years, it continues to be the absolutely most frustrating thing to me to have somebody walk up to me and say, "Why do they deserve food? Tell me before I donate to you, engage with your organization, volunteer for you, why do they deserve food?" Now, the thing is that I used to get as angry as I sound right now, but then I learned that doesn't really get us anywhere. So this is what I say. Well, isn't that an interesting question? Why don't you tell me who you think deserves food? Because I think that everyone deserves food. It's a basic need. And so we as a society need to begin to think about how we can act in ways to ensure that people get food. We can do that in many ways. But let's have empathy. Let's start there. It's not hard. Don't judge. Be empathetic to the fact that you have no idea what happened in that person's life in the last day, week, month, or year. And then let's put people first. And one way you can do that is, of course, the empathy. But remember that 20 pounds I told you about? Here's a simple solution. How about we quit wasting it and get it to the people who need it? I'm going to give you another example, and I'm going to use gardening because it's a pretty generic thing that we can all talk about. And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories of how locally we can engage and make a difference in food insecurity in our communities. For example, we have community gardens and pea patches. But why does that have to only be on public lands? People have land. People have property. In our community in Edmonds, there is a lovely woman who opens up her garden and provides it so that a local school children can come and plant produce, and then they grow it, they learn all about that process, and when they harvest it, they come to the food bank. Now just imagine all those little 5-year-olds walking into the food bank and helping us out and talking to us about all that produce that they get. And in addition, they like to volunteer at the food bank and help us out when they can. That's one way. But another way is an example that my sister did one day. She could not grow garden as much as she used to. But she had neighbors who had moved, and so they didn't have access to gardens anymore as they had downsized. So she opened up her yard, and she said to them, "Come and join me." And now 3 families are fed on the property of 1. Because you see, food security is resilience. It allows you to think and function. And so here's a question. Maybe you say, I don't have the time or the money or the space to do this. But what do you have? What can you share? And then let's be creative. Because food security will be addressed in one of two ways: by proactive engagement or reactive revolution. So here's my final question. Do you want to wait until there is unmet needs that are so bad they lead to revolution? Or do you want to engage in community activities that grow food, protect people's hearts and minds, and ensure that we feed our community and create resilience? I would hope that you would choose the second and thereby create an entire community or even a country or a world that can be resilient. Thank you.